Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of The Caring Generation, Pamela D. Wilson.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert, speaker, consultant, and guardian of the Caring Generation. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, Caregiver Strategies, expert tips to prevent burnout and support self-care. It's episode 224 in year 8 of the Caring Generation podcast. Before jumping into this week's topic, please, if you find this podcast helpful, click the like or follow button on your podcast app and take a minute to make a positive comment or add a positive review. Your likes, follows, and reviews help the Caring Generation podcast grow and reach more listeners. More people seeking solutions related to health, financial, legal, and complicated family matters around the topic of caregiving. If you are a family caregiver or a paid caregiver, you might be wondering how to deal with and recover from caregiver burnout. Whether you are a family caregiver or a paid caregiver who's working in a private home, a care community, or a nursing home, the effects of caregiver burnout and exhaustion are real. In this episode of the Caring Generation podcast, I'll share 3 insights. The first is aspects of care situations for family and paid caregivers that cause emotional and physical stress. Number 2, the effects of this stress on the care situation and the people involved. And 3, how to remove yourself from a care situation that is causing emotional and physical burnout while feeling okay about leaving. I'll share perspectives from both sides of the situation to balance this out, the paid caregivers and family members who come to rely on them, and the perspective of the family caregiver trying to do it all. And I'll toss in the occasional perspective of the person who needs care. If you are that caregiver, burning the candle at both ends and feeling burned out, it is so important to understand the effects of burnout and be open to the possibility that it may be time to make a change. So let's start with number 1, aspects of care situations that cause emotional and physical stress. If you're a professional caregiver, a certified nursing assistant, or a personal care attendant working in a private home, a care community, or a nursing home, this may mean a rotation in the people that you care for. If you're a family caregiver, reducing emotional and physical stress may mean doing less while others do more, or even totally removing yourself from a care situation for your own health and well-being. Now, I've heard from caregivers, Pamela, that's impossible. I can't do it. I can't make a change. Well, yes, you can if you want to. When a caregiver quits or leaves a family situation, the person who needs care and their family members can feel a significant loss because they depended on this paid caregiver, and they felt a sense of relief that this care situation was stable. If we're being realistic, we know that care situations can change in the blink of an eye, and they do. From a hospital, a new diagnosis, a change in physicians. Change is hard. And in a perfect world, life is stable, consistent, and comfortable. Well, if we're lucky, we might have a little stability and consistency for short periods of time in between more significant changes. We create our own situations through the actions and the decisions we make. The people that we care for create their own situations through their actions and the decisions that they made and make today. All of these, they're changeable at any time. We see them change. If you make a mistake, recognize the mistake and change the course of your actions. Don't stay and drown in a bad care situation that is probably likely to get worse. So, for example, as a family member, you may know that hiring a paid caregiver through an agency or individually, I should say, can be a path that takes a lot of work with sometimes multiple caregivers until you find the right one or two, and then everything runs smoothly for a period of time. But then what happens? A caregiver may quit for personal reasons, or they leave to work with another client. How can you avoid this up and down situation? My tip is work with more than one care agency and more than one caregiver. So if one leaves, you already have an established relationship with another caregiver or another care agency, and you're not having to start from scratch. A good client match, meaning the person who needs care, is also very important for an in-home caregiver who wants to look forward to going to work every day and feel like they are making a meaningful contribution. The elephant in the room, the subject that nobody talks about, is caregiver burnout. And it happens with family caregivers and paid caregivers. And it can take time to recover. Now, taking care of people who have health problems, whether it's your mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, whether it's someone that you care for in a care community, it can be exhausting. It is not for everyone. And it is not forever. It does not have to be forever. Burnout results from caring for the care receiver and dealing with family members. And that doesn't matter if you are a family caregiver or if you're a professional caregiver. Dealing with family caregivers goes both ways, and dealing with family members goes both ways. It can be a pleasure, it can be a great experience, or not so much. Family caregivers deal with family members. Paid caregivers deal with family members. Family members can be emotional about care situations, which, while very understandable, can raise the difficulty of a situation and result in some potentially explosive interactions. For paid caregivers who are involved with more than one client or patient, multiply that level of complexity by the number of people that caregiver is in contact with. A doctor's office that I visited recently had signs up about patient behavior, signs saying that aggressiveness from patients will not be tolerated. This particular doctor's office even had a similar message on their voicemail. Now, honestly, as a patient, this made me feel a little bit nervous, as I didn't want to go into a practice where they have issues with angry patients, but it also made me wonder, what was this office doing to have to put up this type of messaging on their voicemail and display it on signs in their office? What on earth happened? Honestly, I don't know that I would ever go back to that office again. What I do know is that family caregivers experience a lot of frustration. People needing care face a lot of frustration when they try to schedule doctor appointments and nobody calls them back, or they're placed on hold forever and then they're disconnected and then they have to call back. Or maybe they actually go to a doctor appointment and prescriptions aren't sent to the pharmacy. Or if the prescription is sent, the insurance company declined the prescription. So this person who went to the doctor's office has to start all over again, contacting everybody to follow up to get what they should have got easily when they left. So you might imagine some of these interactions do get a little animated. They get a little excited because the expectation is that the doctor's office and the staff in the doctor's office will follow through and do their job. Now, let's turn that around. People in doctor's offices can get frustrated with patients and their caregivers because they give them suggestions. They write prescriptions. They schedule procedures. And what happens? The caregiver and the person who needs care, they drop the ball. So that shows you the upset and the frustration that can occur on both sides of that aisle. Now, healthcare is not a consumer good. It's not like something on a store shelf that you go pull off and you get to choose. And, sometimes you're asked if you're satisfied and you're happy with what you bought. Well, in healthcare, most times it's a take it or leave it situation because they have too many patients, not enough time, not enough staff, too much paperwork. It's frustrating. So it's easy to imagine why these type of pressure cooker situations happen for the paid caregivers, for family caregivers, and for the person who needs care. So paid caregivers, they deal with more than one client. And these clients might have more than one health condition. And so maybe that's a learning curve for the paid caregiver. Well, a parent with multiple health conditions is also a learning curve for a family caregiver. Then you've got learning how to deal with the different personalities of family members. And think about this, if you're a family member and you have complicated relationships with your parents or your sibling, you know how hard that can be. Imagine a paid caregiver coming into that situation from the outside and trying to get along with everyone and all of their past history and all of their past baggage and battles. That can be really hard. Paid caregivers, they constantly respond to changes in condition or worsening of the health of a client or a patient. Paid caregiver may leave for the day and come back to work, and the client that they were caring for, they're no longer there. They died overnight. Their body was removed. Well, for that caregiver, there's no time for grieving. There's no time to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry this happened. There's only time to take care of the next patient or client on the list. And then these paid caregivers, well, they have other people to interact with. It could be office staff, their supervisor, schedulers, and other people in their place of employment. Now, if you hire a caregiver and they're an independent contractor, raise the bar. They're on their own. They don't have any support from a company or a supervisor, which may seem easier for the family, less complicated, but not necessarily less complicated for that independent contractor. What it does mean is that that independent contractor must have a higher level of skills to deal with the things that the office staff or a supervisor at a care agency might do for them. And I say that they should have a higher level of skills, but that's not always the case. Paid caregivers who are independent contractors, they work for themselves. They can easily take on too much. They get involved over their skill level because they're trying to do a good job and the families are asking for more and more and more. Paid caregivers can become personally involved with a client and their family, which can lead to a lot of unexpected issues. The caregiver taking sides with one family member versus another. The caregiver isolating the person they care for from family members because this caregiver has the most contact with that person who needs care and has a great degree of influence on that person. These situations of control and elder abuse are very common with paid caregivers who might have very little supervision and very little accountability. So as a family member, it's just something to think about. Mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion is common for all caregivers. So is it truly any wonder why a caregiver might need a change? Is it any wonder why caregivers ask, oh my gosh, how long is it going to take me to recover from caregiver burnout? And in some cases, is it even possible? Aspect number 2. What are the effects of emotional and physical stress on a caregiving situation, and why might you need to remove yourself or change that situation? If you're a caregiver, you may love your paid job or the person you care for, but you may need a rotation in the people you care for, or maybe a total change in situation. Well, how do you know? Studies confirm that 43 to 50% of paid caregivers at some point experience emotional exhaustion. What happens is they begin to detach from work. They have lower levels of job satisfaction and an intention to leave work. And this can be seen in their interactions with others and their mood and the way they approach situations. So this can result in higher turnover for that company, poor health and well-being for the caregiver, being burned out, regardless of paid caregiver or family caregiver, linked with less empathy toward people with memory loss, who honestly can make up the majority of people cared for, especially residents in skilled nursing communities and care homes. For caregivers working in care communities, maybe they witness other staff not doing their job. Maybe other staff is engaging in abusive or neglectful behavior, or they're missing or rushing their care tasks and people don't get taken care of. And that can be disturbing. So in addition to all of these interactions, paid caregivers have to navigate other people in the workplace. For family caregivers, the rate of burnout, very similar. Family caregivers who are exhausted feel less appreciated, more irritable, lose patience, can have less empathy toward a spouse, an elderly person, or another family member. It could be a friend. Now, this is more common when caring for someone with dementia. So many family caregivers I talk to dream of leaving, disappearing in the night, or running away. If this is you, do something before your situation becomes one of burnout or potential elder neglect or abuse. Caregivers across the board have so many similarities when it comes to burnout and exhaustion. Everybody, you, me, we all have emotional limits for dealing with complicated and stressful situations, and we react differently. For some people, when the emotional limit is reached, they get really quiet and they just kind of go on their own. For others, blow-ups, meltdowns, negative interactions, huge arguments. And so in either situation, what can happen is caregivers want to set aside those emotions and they focus on tasks so that they don't have to deal with the emotions or the human connection, which is the problem related to burnout. Now, the problem, though, is that all of the people that the caregivers care for want the emotional connection. The person who feels sick wants their concerns and their problems to be heard, and they want help and empathy and care and love. But when burnout happens, there comes a point when the caregiver just can't give anymore. There's no more empathy, there's no more patience, there's no more caring. Now, the interesting fact here is that the caregiver actually does this in some cases because they want an emotional connection. They want somebody to listen to them, to be empathetic to their situation. So in a lot of these cases, the caregiver and the care receiver have a lot in common. When the need for empathy and care and patience and interest and appreciation is not met on either side, that care situation comes to a screeching halt. It stops working. Some people who need care with dementia or a mental illness can be verbally and physically abusive, or they can just resist care. Those behaviors, those problems, add a lot of stress to a care situation. And caregivers, especially those who lack experience or training in these areas, are more likely to burn out quickly. So this leads to the last question, number 3. How do you remove yourself from a care situation that is causing you emotional and physical burnout while feeling okay about either doing less or just leaving? So to frame this, let me ask you a question. If you work or you've had a job, how many times have you changed jobs during your lifetime or companies during your lifetime? And for what reasons? Caregiving. Whether you are a family member or a paid caregiver, it's a job. It's also a duty and a responsibility with expectations. but it's still work, tasks, projects, things that take up time, emotional encounters, and attachments. Sometimes we get attached to the people that we care for. So to remove yourself from a care situation that is causing emotional and physical burnout while feeling okay, you have to consider yourself, your life, your health, your well-being, your career, your family, your dreams, everything. Caregiving for an older person who will likely have more health complications over time. It's not like raising a baby who needs a lot of care initially and then they become more independent with time, and by the age of 18, they can mostly take care of themselves and they're out of the house, especially if they've been raised to be self-sufficient and independent. So family caregivers have a struggle with this job that has an indefinite time frame, which is attached sometimes to the length of time that a spouse lives or an aging parent lives or that grandma and grandpa lives. None of us can predict that last day. None of us can predict when anybody is going to die. So that's stressful. Then you've got these paid caregivers who choose a career, maybe like a doctor, and because of all the effort they put into that education and the student loans and all of that, they're most likely to do this for a lifetime, but that does not mean that they don't get burned out and exhausted. The same goes for nurses and other healthcare professionals, other care staff like CNAs, who may be in these positions and happy in their careers or working toward another career goal. So for caregivers, there is this tie to family, or for professional caregivers, it may be a tie to an investment in education or the difficulty changing careers. Some professional caregivers maybe are in this for a temporary or transitory job while they're trying to figure out what do they really want to do. Some in-home caregivers, they're retirees who really don't need the income, but they want to do something fulfilling. So there's so many different backgrounds about why caregivers do what they do. So many different reasons about why caregivers do what they do. But even still, emotional burnout, exhaustion, it's real. So it's important to start recognizing signs of early burnout. If you're a paid caregiver, start discussions with your company. If you're a family caregiver, start discussions in the family saying, I can do this now, but I don't know that I can do it in 6 months. We need other solutions. And other solutions may be, let's say you're a professional caregiver and maybe you work in a nursing home. Maybe you go work at an assisted living community for 6 months or a year or 2 years. Recognizing the need to change and making the change before you're totally burned out is good for you. Believe it or not, the person that you care for and their family can live without you, even though they might miss you, and you might miss them if you're a professional caregiver. The same goes for family caregivers. Your mom or dad or spouse or grandma or grandpa may have become so dependent on you because you kind of fostered that relationship by everything that you did. When you start inviting other people in, they may not like it. But in some cases, it's the only realistic thing to do to protect your health. You have a duty of care to care for yourself as much as you care for other people. If you're a family caregiver, establishing care expectations and boundaries and time frames that you can do this very early in the process is the best plan. However, very few caregivers realize the importance of doing this until they are reaching burnout. Establishing expectations and boundaries looks something like this. Hey, mom or dad, I agree to spend 5 hours helping you every week, and I'll do A, B, and C. If it's more than 5 hours, or if it's more than these A, B, and C, we need to find someone else to help. Now, if you're listening to this, you may be beyond this time limit, and you've moved on to burnout and exhaustion. If so, you either have to make time to research and identify other care options, or find somebody who can help you be the caregiver. If you have siblings who don't help, ask them to help you do the research. Let them know that you're done in 3 months and that you need a plan. If they refuse to help, then at least you've asked and they won't be surprised in 3 months when you leave. Let your parent or the person you care for know that you need a change in 3 months. Set a time frame. Maybe both of you can work to identify other care options. If you're a family member who's given up paid employment and you depend on the person you care for a place to live and financial support, then you probably have a much longer timeline because you've got to get back into the workforce so that you can financially support yourself while finding someone else to care for your loved one. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe you have a friend or another family member that you can go live with while you put your life back together. Regardless of the reason for the need for change, you need a plan to remove yourself or reduce the time spent caregiving. Creating this plan, it only happens through your actions. If you want to make it happen, you have to set a plan, set a timeline, set goals each week for yourself to make it happen. I know a lot of caregivers who find it difficult to do this, or they feel guilty, or they worry about what other people will think, or they worry about disappointing a family member who needs care. You're not abandoning them if you find another care situation for them, which I know is possible, even though you may think it's impossible. If you're that burned out caregiver, do whatever it takes to reclaim your physical health and your well-being. And know that this is going to happen in the time frame that you commit to make it happen. It doesn't happen without you. The time frame to recover from burnout and exhaustion depends on how quickly you can change your care situation, where you can manage with less stress and exhaustion. Some people, burnout recovery can take weeks. For others, months, some years. And if you've been a 24/7 caregiver for years, maybe you have so many health problems that you're beyond the point that you will ever recover, but you can manage. I thank you all so much for being here. There's more information and support for caregivers on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, in my caregiver support group on Facebook called The Caregiving Trap, on my YouTube channel where there are over 900 videos. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert, advocate, speaker, and educator. You're with me on The Caring Generation. This is episode 224. To view the show transcript and the video that accompanies this podcast, go to PamelaDWilson.com, click on the Media tab, select The Caring Generation, and scroll down to find episode 224. And while you're there, check out the other 223 helpful episodes. I look forward to being with you all again. God bless you all. Sleep well tonight. Have a fabulous day tomorrow and enjoy each day until we are here together again.
Tune in each week for The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D. Wilson's The Caring Generation.